But prior to that, I was hyper masculine. And I will tell you, it is so much more delicious to flow. It feels like and I say this with no ego. Women who have found that way to balance the two, I feel like that feminine side of me, I feel like she's the magic maker of our family.
Hallo lieve dames en mensen. Vandaag heb ik een hele bijzondere podcast, want ik heb iemand helemaal uit Amerika, Dr. Hanson. En dan gaan we het natuurlijk in het Engels doen, want zij is all about womanhood, feminine energy, de noodzaak om te helen, dat de man ook weer in balans komt met de energie. Dus ik ga door in het Engels. Dr. Hanson, she's with me. Welcome. She is an author, speaker, doctor of psychology. She's a clinical psychologist, speaker, and author. She renowned for her transformative work in redefining the paradigm of womanhood. Her unique approach that merges clinical psychology with ancient holistic practices reached millions of women worldwide, which is, I think, amazing and great. And today I would love to talk about healing the mother wound, feminine energy, and of course, relationships. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are doing such beautiful work. And when I saw you, it resonated immediately. The messages that you put out in the world, I believe we need that so much. And you took a very brave step because it wasn't your work, right? You were a clinical psychologist, and you decided to transform that into a new career. Can you tell me something about that?
Yes. So I was in private practice doing traditional clinical psychology. And I was feeling, as I was changing and coming into my mid to late 40s, I was on a journey where I started to really understand that what women needed was so much more than talk therapy. They needed to get up and move their bodies. They needed to get up and have experiential processes. And so one by one, I would tell my client, let's stand up, or let's get on the floor. Let's lay on our side. And I would start instructing them to move in ways that was not considered traditional psychology. And the results that these women got were remarkable. And so then fast forward a bit, COVID happens, and I am becoming more and more clear personally that the work I was doing, all of my training in clinical psychology really was founded in the patriarchal structure, because the biggest thought leaders in psychology were men who wrote the theory and passed it down. And I thought, as I deconstructed every aspect of my life, I realized, oh my gosh, even my work has patriarchal threads. So I found the most natural shift when the pandemic happened. Very organically, my clients just wanted to be seen on. Of course, I was seeing them online. Then they would say things to me like, oh my gosh, my friend in this part of the country, or my sister who lives in Dubai. So I just started running groups on Zoom for women from all over the world. And it just happened so effortlessly. I closed down my private practice. I've never looked back. And in the past 2.5 years, organically, my message has reached 200 million women around the world.
Amazing, amazing. Just by following your heart and doing what you felt was your passion and what was needed, which I think is one important message already, that we start following the flow, the heart, our knowing, our intuition, or whatever you want to call it. And if we do that, it will flow, the synchronicity will come. And that's also feminine energy, isn't it?
It really is. And trusting this message that was coming from the divine mother within me, as I'm almost 52 now. And as I have journeyed in my own life, there was so much messaging that I craved that I feel like is missing in the landscape for women. And so I just started sharing the messages that have really helped me on my journey, have helped all of my clients. And it's just been an unbelievable response, because I just brought to the world what I was so craving. And in life, as a woman, I've been craving a leader. I couldn't find her. So I decided to become the woman I was craving.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how I got here.
Yes, and what your message is that every woman, every person actually has that leadership, has that power. And if they start trusting that and following that, they can do whatever they want and they can be happy and healthy. Yeah. Okay, so what do you believe is the root cause of the disruption or imbalance between the feminine and masculine energy in today's world?
I think we're there's this point at which women, I was thinking about this actually, as I was driving from my home to here at my studio. And I was thinking about how for so long there's been this sense of shame for us as women if we craved more outside of the traditional life of wife, mother, homemaker, community leader. And there has not been a lot of space, at least here in America. I can speak as an American woman. There's not a lot of space for women to be supported, especially because of the childcare situation in America and the maternity leave. We are in pretty dire straits. So we have a message that doesn't support women doing much outside of the home. Yet you can almost think you're crazy because the verbal message is like, oh my gosh, we love women, so we support women and children. You can be anything, but the structures don't actually support us. So I think what's happened in America, I can speak to, is women have had to become ultra masculine and strong so that they could take care of everything, whether it's their family. I see women who are professionals, working professionals, and then also coming home, still taking care of everything in the home, still taking care of the children. And there's just such an imbalance. And I think it's thrown our masculine feminine system off because rather than saying, oh my gosh, women, you want to go into the workforce, how can we create a system that supports you? Rather than saying that, it's like, well, figure it out. So when you leave it to us, we're going to figure it out, but that means we're going to have to get more into our masculine because we don't have systems that allow us to be in our feminine. And so I think there's a lot of confusion about like, oh, be in your feminine, be in your flow. And while I'm one of the huge supporters of that, we need systems that allow women to do that. And here in America, we don't have that.
We need to change the root cause because we can change our behaviors and that will do some, especially if we have sisterhood or womanhood and we connect, then we are stronger together to change something. But we do need to change the root cause, which is the system which is built on masculine energy. It's about being successful in your job and in your career, and it's also fought from the men. And men fought all the they check medicine on men, not on women. Everything that is we were built on is being thought of by men. Even how we drive our car is also everything. And there's no balance. Where do you think is that? Because where did we got into the wrong direction? Where did that happen, do you think?
5,000 years ago when
Yeah.
patriarchy was created. So this is not a new system. This even Aristotle taught about the domination of women, right? And women being a subclass. And if for those who are Christian, there even in the Bible, Leviticus, there's a verse that refers to not to touch a woman who is bleeding, not to sit next to her or on anything that she's sat on because she's impure, she's unclean. So, and there are many places around the world that, have traditions that have women spiritually clean themselves after their period before they can be with their husband again.
Yeah.
So we don't see women as equal. So until we value women, the creators of humanity and life, until we value women, we are not going to be able to feel safe enough to really be in our feminine flow. And nobody loves success and money and all of the things that come with it more than me. So I also don't want to perpetuate a narrative that we as women don't love success. We don't love making our own money. We don't love power. But the examples of power in the world have been so horrible that we're afraid to say we want power. We're afraid to say we want money. But I believe power and money are simply an amplifier. So if you're an amazing person, money
The rest will
and
follow.
power and influence, yes, will just amplify your beautiful message. If you are not a good person, it will amplify your greed inside of you or that nature. So there's nothing at all wrong with money, power, and influence. It's how we use it. And women, more often than not, use it so beautifully. And that's why I trust power and influence and money in the hands of women more than I do men.
Absolutely. And what do you think that the men, because we don't say men are bad people and that they have intentions to ruin the world. That's not the message, I believe. I believe that the men also were pushed into a collective awareness or a collective system where they thought they needed to be like this. They need to take advantage of their power, or they needed to suppress other people to be loved or to be recognized. I don't believe men want to do that, but they don't know that anymore. Some men, let's say not everybody, but I believe they forgot their real power because of the structure and the system they got into. Do you also believe that?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that patriarchy as a structure, patriarchy isn't men, right? Patriarchy is a structure. So
Structure.
the most patriarchalized people I know are women, patriarchalized women, right? But what I believe is that the patriarchy hurts everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I've raised three sons. I have one daughter and three sons. They're all in their 20s. And my sons have been raised with so much balance, as has my daughter. But it's a beautiful environment when they feel like they have space to be in that divine masculine, where they get to be masculine in the ways that are so honoring and beautiful and powerful, and still be in touch with their emotions. So I intentionally use some very specific modalities when I was raising them to raise them to be in that divine masculine. They are the greatest examples of that. And I would love for them at some point in their lives to go on and share and teach more men how to become that.
Absolutely. And even if a man serves a woman, that doesn't mean he is not powerful. He is so much more powerful when he knows how to serve a woman, because then she can really make the connection with that man. Then she can really be open to him. Then she can really receive that love. But if he is aggressive or egocentric or all about power, then she will shut down. She will make a disconnection. She won't feel safe being in that environment, even though he thinks I'm doing all I can. I'm providing for the food, and I'm taking care of that. The house is being taken care of. That's not what we need in a relationship. We need that the equality, that we need to feel that we're safe together. So there's
Yes, I think that women, when you create that together, right, the woman also has to be able to receive that. So I
exactly.
hear a lot of women claim they want certain things, but they're not in the space to actually receive it fully. And that requires a lot of vulnerability. But I think when you can find that beautiful balance, my husband and I have been married 28 years, and we have found this balance, and it has taken work. It was not an overnight process, right? I went through all of my phases. He went through his growth phases. But the commitment to always figuring this out is what I think has attributed to us being a power couple, like the ultimate power couple, because he so deeply honors and respects my leadership in our family as the emotional leader, and my business and my success. He's the hugest supporter of me, as I am for him. And he even said last night, he's traveling, he's in Asia right now, and we were making a family decision about the holidays. And he had suggested something. And I said, I'm having a really strong intuition about this, and something feels off about it. I think we need to do this instead. And he immediately texted back and he said, your intuition has never landed us in the wrong place. I
Mhm.
trust you make the choice you think is best for the family for the holidays. So
Yeah.
it's like that spaciousness to say, I trust you.
The
So
recognition also, that the trust and the recognition. Well, I know now why we do resonate so beautifully, because I'm also with my husband for 28 years. I'm also 52 years old. I also have children in the 20s. I have two boys, physical alive, one girl of 21. She's the youngest, and I have had a miscarriage, which I believe was a boy also. So I had four children, which makes me almost emotional talking about it, because we're in the same phase in the same.
I
And
have a 21-year-old daughter.
are you kidding? That is, it's got
We're
me.
living we're living parallel lives.
We do, and we have the same measures. I love this, and everything you're saying, I'm saying, oh my God, it's me talking. This is what I always say, and this is how I have grown into our relationship as well. Because when we first started, and maybe that's also a nice bridge to the next topic, is we were traumatized both. And he had a lot of traumas. I did have a safe and warm home, although I did have the mother wound. But he had so many traumas. His father was alcoholic, and his brother had a very big accident, so his mother had to put all her care into his brother when he was 5 months old. So he just went from aunt to aunt to aunt. And well, you can understand that he had a lot of disconnecting, and he was afraid of really connect. And of course, I wanted to connect so badly. So we did meet each other in a lot of turbulent ways also, but there was always that deeper love and a deeper respect. And I think that's the foundation. It doesn't matter what happens as long as you can make that connection on a deeper level and trust. And yeah, yeah, it's amazing.
Beautiful thing.
It
It's like
is.
the opportunities to grow in relationship and heal are, I wish people really understood that. And I think with the disposability of relationships now, there isn't that staying power. When you make that commitment, it doesn't mean that it's going to be fun or easy. And I'm not also at all, I don't advocate for women staying if there's any kind of abuse whatsoever. Of course not. But I do believe when you have two people, because you really need to have two who are committed
Yeah.
to finding their way together, it can be one of the most healing, beautiful things. You know, my husband and I, every year for our anniversary, we pick somewhere to go and we take all of our kids. We've been forever, even as they're adults, you know, because we want them to see. He and I take time alone, of course, but we also want them to see that week of celebration of our relationship. And we write letters to each other, right? We write these love letters and we read them at dinner, you know, privately. And well, when I say privately, I mean, we're not like in a restaurant. We have a private dinner and we read the letters to each other, and all of our kids get to witness that. And it is a culmination of our life together. And every year the letter is a bit different. And it's so powerful because this past August, when I was reading my letter to him, I was saying, I, at this point, don't even know me without you. Because, and I said, he's like the memory carrier of all, like I can just look at him and he knows what I'm thinking most often. He knows.
It's
Yes.
always one. You're one. You're
And I
one.
want that for so many more people. I want
Yeah,
that so
me
much for
too.
people.
Oh, it's a blessing to have that. And you're very, very rich in that experience. So we honor that and we cherish that. Yes, I can relate to that. So in a lot of ways, people are still experiencing traumas, the mother wound, the father wound. And of course, they contribute to the imbalance of masculine and feminine energy. What do you think that what, because I believe we can do healing for transgenerational healing. Sorry for my English sometimes.
You're fabulous.
Transgenerational healing, because my mother wasn't able to receive that love, so she couldn't give it to me when I needed it. And I wanted to break that pattern with my daughter and with my children. But of course, we need awareness for that. We need to be conscious of that. So, what do you advise the people who are listening or seeing this to heal that mother wound, to be aware? How are they able to be aware of that, to become aware of that?
First of all, there has to be a willingness. Without a willingness to heal this, it doesn't just happen, right? There has to be such a deep willingness to heal this for yourself, because I believe when we heal it for ourselves, we heal it whether or not you have children of your own. We still heal it collectively for the world, and we heal it back for our mothers and our grandmothers and the women who couldn't. And I do a lot of that ancestral healing, right? I do walk women through large group ancestral healing meditations. And one of the first, I also want to say, as a very metaphorical way of helping women understand this as well. I'm sure you've heard the analogy. You don't go to the hardware store looking for milk. If you go to the hardware store and every day you show up asking, can you tell me where you keep the milk? And they say, oh, we don't sell milk here. And you come back every day and they're like, you've been coming for 20 years. We've never sold milk and we never will. Please go to the store that actually has that for that need of yours. It's the same as we go to our mothers expecting something from them that they've never been able to provide and will never be able to. All we do is re-traumatize ourselves.
Exactly.
So it becomes insanity at some point when you keep going for this need to be met that somebody doesn't even have the skill set to meet. So it's like going to the store asking what aisle is the milk on. The store's never sold milk. But if I stay and I pay attention, I can find some other beautiful things at that store. And maybe if I shift my perspective, I can make magic with those. But then the pieces that don't get fulfilled, what I had to do for mother wounds and father wounds, I had profound father wounds, was several years ago, I made a list of everything I wished I would have had if I'd had a father. I wished he would have done what? And I literally wrote it out. Same for my mother. And then this is over, a long process, and it still shows itself up, right? And I still have to do the
Yeah,
work.
there are layers. Yeah.
Exactly. But the question was, okay, you wanted acknowledgement from your dad. You wanted to be seen for who you really were. You wanted him to show up for you. Okay. Do you acknowledge yourself, Amanda? Do you show up for yourself? Do you really see and celebrate yourself? And I realized in many ways I wasn't. So then my way of healing that unmet father need is become that internal father to myself. So
Yes.
I became the person who's like, I'm so proud of you. Under every circumstance, you always figure it out. My gosh, you blow my mind. Keep going. Nothing seems to stop you, right? Just I showed up in that masculine way for myself. And then the same for the mother. I showed up with all of the ways that I needed my mother to show up, to hold me or hug me or just grab me by the face and say, what do you need, baby girl? And so I did all the things that they couldn't do for me to myself. And
Yes.
that was such a direct route for healing myself. So I could then turn and give it to my daughter. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to take our unmet needs and overdo it for our children, because then you create like the smothering effect, right? So
Absolutely.
there's a very fine balance, because I didn't want my unmet needs to become enmeshment with my daughter or my sons. And that is a really, really fine balance
And a good motivator as well, because if you don't know how to do it for yourself, it could help you to realize that your daughter or your son has an advantage when you do that for them. So even if you feel like, I don't know how, the power that will come to you when you think about your kids and the motivation that will rise, that will help you go for it. And I really, I recognize that exercise as well. And I also believe that when you do that with your dad, you just, there's no, you write them down, your needs, you check in on how it felt and where it felt in your body. And then also what I love to do, and that's how I also did it, is when I looked into my mom's eyes when I was so little and I couldn't make myself clear then. And then put my grandma behind her and then make her turn around and see her as that little baby who needed attention and cried for love. And then I put my grandma make her turn around. And then I see that everybody is just doing the same thing over again till somebody stops doing that. And well, maybe I have to be that one. And then when I see my mom being hurt and I see my grandma being hurt, that also is so healing. That's also so revealing that love that's underneath there, because my mom didn't want anything else for me but being loved and being proud of me. She just couldn't express it because she didn't have that example. So I love
It's,
that.
oh,
Yeah.
I think it makes me so emotional. I think it is the most profound thing to do. It's the most important work I've ever done in my life. And it's
You.
why I'm such a huge proponent of it.
I
It
love
really
that.
has the opportunity to change our
Yeah.
our legacy. And I do think that the feeling gets implanted in women like you and me and many of our clients because they recognize themselves as leaders.
Absolutely.
They recognize, like, I am the leader of my lineage. Like, it ends with me. Like, I get to be the one who creates a different story.
And it's never about guilt, because a lot of people come up to me and they feel that they did something wrong or that they have to blame their parents and that they don't want to do that because they feel loyal and they respect their parents and they feel they need to be nice about them. It's not about blaming and shaming. It's about loving and forgiving. So the pathway is free, right? It's
Yes, because when you gaslight yourself and say, oh, I can't even face that. I mean, they were great. They did the best they could. And you just override the reality. You don't actually ever get to healing. So I think that duplicity can be true, right? We can love and respect and honor our parents and acknowledge they did the best they could and hold the truth that we didn't get what we needed.
exactly,
Don't blame. It's just a
exactly.
fact. It's
Yes,
just
that's also a feeling that was there, and that's also a fact, and you should heal that part. And that doesn't mean you don't like your mom or you didn't like your dad or you didn't love them, which I think is a good separation to make because a lot of people don't dare to go there because they feel guilt or feel loyal or whatever. So it's good to actually say that. Can you explain how an individual's relationship with their parents influences their understanding and embodiment of these masculine and feminine energies?
yes, I mean, we're learning, right? For women, we're learning about what it means to be a woman watching our mothers.
Yeah.
And so, if our first real encounter of womanhood, if you're being raised by your mother or a grandmother and aunt, if your first encounter to womanhood didn't see you or didn't feel safe, we, in our nervous systems at a young age, interpret that being a woman isn't even safe
Yeah.
or being around other women is not safe. That's why we have so much fractured sisterhood, such sisterhood wounding, where we don't trust other women because there's
Yes.
this feeling, our mothers and grandmothers grew up with that really strong message that other women could not be trusted. Well, I heard that growing up from my grandmothers, both my grandmothers and my mom. So, of course, I only hung around with men. But then what we do is that message isolates women even more. They depend more on their relationship with their partner because they don't feel like they have anyone else. So this whole messaging gets us in a really bad situation because healing that sisterhood wound, I think also that stems from that motherhood wound. So we are watching and creating versions of our identity of what men are, our own internal masculine by our relationship or lack thereof to our father. My message was men aren't reliable. Men leave. Men want the next flashy thing. Men don't stay. Men don't commit. Right. So I then went on to marry someone who travels internationally every week for our entire marriage. So it's almost like unconsciously, I married him to heal that wound. He leaves
Absolutely.
every week and
Yeah.
then he comes back. And every year it's gotten easier to deal with the transition. But there is a grief that happens. You leave
Yeah.
and do you come back? Right. So it is
The fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being trustworthy, the other one not being trustworthy enough. And
right.
that,
And what I built ultimately is he may not come. There may be a day he decides not to come back.
exactly.
What I have rooted into in the last 10, 15 years is that the one person I know who will never abandon me is me. I will never turn my back
Beautiful.
on
Beautiful.
myself.
Yes, that is the acceptance of, I don't know the word in English, but we call it vergankelijkheid. We call it that things come and go and you should be at ease with whatever happens. That's the most enlightened feeling you can have, I believe. That's freedom. That's ultimate freedom. I do still have some challenges about my children with that because seeing them leave forever would be next level for me as well. But then, of course, that also needs to heal if you can step into that belief that it's always okay, no matter when people leave, how they leave. It's all meant to be. Your soul needs that lesson and all that. That gives so much relief and freedom in your mind and soul. That's also part of healing, I believe, as well. Yes, I know that feeling. Yeah. So, how do you see the role of female energy in healing, both on a personal and collective level?
Yeah, I think it's rewriting the narrative of what feminine energy is. I know in America a lot of feminine energy has been performative, right? There was this misunderstanding like feminine energy is big breasts, tight skirts, long hair, high heels, big earrings, lots of makeup, performative, right? A performative feminine energy. And the deep feminine energy, which I think is much more vulnerable and harder to access, is a really internal job, right? It's less about the performance of what looking like a woman means. It's that internal. So for me, the way that the most direct route for me to connect with my feminine energy is to follow my body. So by that, for me, it has been a journey of listening to natural healing for myself, my husband, my children, as I raised the family. A lot of the medical model did not align with me because that felt invasive. So
Yeah.
I leaned very much on Mother Earth and Mother Nature for healing remedies, very much. I have tuned into my own body, right? And I followed my cycles, natural childbirth, breastfeeding. Now I'm in menopause. I'm doing a very natural menopause journey because don't color my hair, right? I don't do Botox. I'm not taking any hormone replacement therapy because if we're talking about connecting with the true feminine resides within us if you're willing to listen. But if you are a patriarchalized woman, you're going to be more in the like, no, but I need to perform and look like I did when I was 30 if I'm 50. I can't. Our estrogen is changing for a reason.
Yeah.
Bodies are going through these cycles for a reason. And when you learn to trust and honor those cycles, just like the 28-day moon cycle, it's forever changing every day. There's no coincidence that the average woman has a 28-day cycle as well. That to me is the ultimate connection to that feminine energy because she trusts, she's in flow, she is listening deeply and intuitively. That to me is the direct superhighway to
That's
connecting with.
superpower also. That's superpower because then you're authentic, then you are that magnet where you talk about that magnetic energy. Then you can only, then you know it's a knowing, it's not a willpower or it's not a belief system. It's a knowing that the actions you do have that effect, have that beautiful impact on yours and other people's life. That is feminine energy. And that is so powerful. That's creative energy. We are here to create. So let's go deep inside to the deepest parts of our body because there we do create. And that's where a lot of anger and hurt and abuse and there's so much stored there that needs to be healed for a lot of women to get even in that deepest part. I mean, they stayed up here, they stayed above their throat because in their head they think they're safe, but all down there, all that storage of love, being hurt and being rejected, the heart chakra, and also being safe. We should be, we should, we should actually want to go there. We should do that. That is where the magic happens. Yes, I.
And through the portal of pleasure, I teach a lot about pleasure and whether it's orgasmic pleasure or pleasure through our five senses, right? Everything that has been shamed out of women, everything that has been feared, everything that's been taken and fracked from women, I teach women how to own that creative energy and that pleasure deep within themselves in all aspects of their life. And pleasure is what reawakens the feminine in those senses. And it's just, and again, I'm not talking about performative and posing for external validation. I'm talking about something so deeply internally sensual that you can just feel the power of it in a room. But it's not a woman who's in high heels, and red lipstick posing. It's not that.
I know. And what about men? Because we all have feminine and masculine energy. We have that, and we need to have that in balance because if we create, we need to act upon it. So we also have that masculine energy. And it's the same with men as well, because a lot of men think that this is a way for women to be to get more power or whatever they feel threatened about. That's not what we're talking about. We talk about working together, men and women. There's a lot of confusion right now about the gender also. Where do you think that comes from? That disbalance or traumatized, or what do you think that is?
I really think that we if we felt safe enough inside of our bodies, we would feel safe to flow between our masculine and feminine. Right now, I'm much more in my feminine in this conversation with you. But
Yes.
when we finish this call, my list of to-dos for my business, because I have a live event in 2 weeks, is so long. So the feminine, while I may like move throughout the day and put some music on as I'm going through that to-do list, I have to stay extremely focused because it is a lot that has to be done today. So thank goodness for my masculine energy, because that's the one that will be very focused, that will have everything on all of the Excel spreadsheets to make sure everything's been checked, everyone's been paid for, everything's been scheduled, right? Thank goodness. And the masculine structure is what has built the back end of my business, the systems,
Yes.
right? The checks and balances, if you will. But the forward facing, the heart and soul of this business is my feminine. It's when the camera goes on and I share from my heart without a script. It's the feminine that leads in this business. But I need also the container of the masculine within me to even have a business that generates profit.
Yeah.
So I think finding that balance, and I think for men, there's been such a misunderstanding that to connect with anything feminine in them, and usually they got this message from their fathers, maybe even their mothers, that to connect with anything soft or gentle or feminine somehow means they're less of a man, as opposed to, I think it's even more masculine when you can be in touch with the tenderness inside of you. And I think you create such a beautiful trust and safety in relationships, because when your partner sees that, it allows them to open into theirs. So I think for each gender, men or women, it's learning how to become comfortable flowing with both. But again, I don't think men have a ton of examples of that. I don't think women have a ton of examples. I think it's leaders like ourselves who are showcasing what that gets to look like.
Yeah.
When is the masculine in the driver's seat and when is the feminine in the driver's seat? And mine are changing sometimes within the hour and all throughout my day and week.
Yeah, I think the best example of that is the one you started off with about the holiday, that when you wrote your husband that intuitively didn't feel right, he just said, okay, then I'll leave you up to the decision, because I follow your intuition because that's always right. And that's not an ego-minded husband. That's a husband who dares to step into the flow, dares to serve his woman, because he knows then that will have the best for everybody, for the family, for my relationship. And it's fine for me not to have made that decision, not to be the man who pushed that decision through because I have to do that. No, it is a togetherness. It is your intuition. He dares to trust that. That flow is also for him a feminine energy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes,
There are many times where I lean back and fully receive, and he's in the driver's seat. And I
exactly.
think because there's such a beautiful ebb and flow, we're not in a power struggle of like, no,
That's what I meant.
I
Power
chose this
struggle.
destination and we're going here, right? It's like,
Exactly.
oh, we're trusting each other in the flow of it so beautifully.
Exactly. That is a beautiful example of that waving of energy that is getting the best out of everybody. That's what we need and what we want. And yeah, so beautiful. And let's talk a little bit more about sisterhood, because I saw your last post, I believe you went out on the street, or a couple of posts ago, I don't remember. You went out in the street and you asked other women, how do they feel about that women don't support each other anymore? And the answers that came were so recognizable. They said women are always jealous. They put each other down. They're afraid of each other. They feel threatened by each other. Well, I believe that in the old days, when the men went out, let's say, to get some food, we had to have that sisterhood. We had to protect that environment. We had to work together to save each other, to trust each other, and that is totally gone, because we all live in our own individual space. And if we want it to be safe, we think we need to put a fence between our neighbors so nobody can see us anymore, nobody can hear us anymore. There's a lot of violence going on into the neighbors' homes, but we don't know how to act upon it anymore. We don't dare to. We think we have to Um, we have to make them feel private. So a lot of sisterhood has been gone. Well, I believe that's what needs to be done at this time of this, when this earth is changing. The sisters need to come together, don't they?
Yes, and I also think that it will allow spaciousness for the masculine feminine relationship to flourish, because then you have your sisterhoods that you are leaning on for all of that sisterhood support, and that feminine energy gets to really flourish and blossom. Because the idea is not for my husband to become my girlfriend.
Exactly.
The idea is I want my husband to be the man. I want him to
Yes.
be in that masculine leadership role in many ways in our relationship. But if I don't have those natural needs being fulfilled, it's going to be imbalance in my life. And so I'm going to expect him to do all of it. And that's unhealthy to put so much burden and expectation on one person. So it's so beautiful and necessary. But again, I think because, at least for me and a lot of women I work with, because we were further removed from having mothers or grandmothers or even great grandmothers who communed, who went to each other's homes when one was having a baby, who brought food and who had like so much help and support. Because I didn't grow up witnessing that at all. We understand, like, even when we think about, I don't know how it is in other countries, but in America, almost every other woman now has postpartum depression. I'm like, I don't even believe that's a circumstantial situation. She's depressed because she's isolated. She just had a baby. Her body's gone through so much. And now she's expected to feed herself, feed the baby, decide what she's going to do with her career. Her body has totally changed in a world that tells her her body's her most valuable thing. No wonder she feels depressed,
Yes.
right? And so, that's a whole different subject for another day. I could say so much about that system here in America, again, how we have failed new mothers. But I think that it's really, really important for that sisterhood wound to be healed. It's going to take, I always say, I can't worry about whether or not I trust other women. I have to first and foremost trust myself. So I think the most direct way to heal the sisterhood wound is to heal the misogyny you feel inside for yourself, the hatred of woman that you feel internalized for yourself, that internalized misogyny. Because once I value and honor and trust myself deeply, I will reflect that in how I see other women. And ultimately, if another woman talks behind my back, steals a body of my work, or leaves my life for some reason, it's all okay.
Yes.
I don't need to trust that no woman's ever going to talk about me. I have intuition that is so deep and profound. If it feels imbalanced, I will know to end the friendship. So I get to be really open and free with how I bring people and women into my lives, because I don't actually need to trust them. I just need to trust myself. I don't need to trust my husband. I just need to trust myself. I don't need to trust people who work for me. I just need to trust myself.
That's what I also say. Don't set boundaries. Take your space. Use that space, and you will reflect that space, and then you will resonate with people who will respect that space. If you have to set boundaries, it comes out of fear. If you take your space, it comes out of power, right?
Yes.
Take that space, and if they don't respect that, you can just say thank you, no thanks. I'm not gonna have to see you anymore. You have to
Yes.
dare to say that. People are always afraid to reject other people because they were once rejected themselves. Don't want to hurt others. You don't hurt others, you help others by reflecting your power. And if they're not ready for that yet, then they can heal themselves in whenever they want, whatever time they need. But it's not your responsibility, right?
I
It's what you
completely
meant.
agree with that.
Yes,
I love that.
I can.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, I love this conversation so much. There is so much more we can talk about. Is there something that you would love to share about this feminine and masculine energy before I go to the next? I have a little short exercise I would love to go through you. It's I give you two choices. You have to choose one, even if you cannot choose, and then we can talk about that later. But is there something else before we go there that you would love to say right now about this feminine energy, or did you say I need to say that?
Yes, I want to say that feminine energy is not weak. I think there is also a misunderstanding that women are sometimes report to me that they're afraid that if they surrender or soften into that feminine energy, everything's going to fall apart, or
Yes.
that they're going to be taken advantage of, right? But feminine energy, at least in the way that I teach it, it is a beautiful power. And it speaks as the woman is just existing, right? It's really has its own leadership quality. So I want women to know and hear that leaning into your feminine energy is so incredibly exquisite and powerful. And I function in hyper masculine for so much of my early life that I got an autoimmune disease. I got Hashimoto's thyroiditis because I couldn't rely on these parental figures. And for my survival, I had to go into hyper masculine. And I was like so disconnected from my feminine. It wasn't until I was pregnant for the first time that I allowed myself to surrender into the awe and wonder and mystery of my body and what it was doing as it was creating this life. And so that journey started, 24 years ago. But prior to that, I was hyper masculine. And I will tell you, it is so much more delicious to flow. It feels like and I say this with no ego. Women who have found that way to balance the two, I feel like that feminine side of me, I feel like she's the magic maker of our family.
She is. She is.
Magician. It's so beautiful what she brings to spaces and the life that she brings and the joy and the laughter and the playfulness and the emotionality. It's, oh my gosh, I can't imagine not having ever connected with my feminine.
Oh, it's beautiful. Embrace that feminine energy. That's what you actually just said. Just go for it. It's too beautiful to not do that. And I also recognize that so much because I came from that same masculine energy. And also in the world where I'm and maybe you as well, I still had to fight for my own space. I had to fight for it. It wasn't like, oh, there's a woman saying all about healing. No. And especially in the Netherlands, I mean, in America, healing is okay. It is well known and people say, oh, yeah, you have to heal. But in the Netherlands, that's only 20 years or so that people go to coaches or go to therapy, or that is normal to reflect on yourself in that way. So I'm being put aside a lot and rejected and ignored um and I just kept going. I knew my whole gut told me this is what the world needs, this is what I need, of course. And um and I also needed that masculine energy to get there. And the people who did this already were men. So I thought, what, how? And then,
Yes. I'm so thankful that you didn't give up because so it was your masculine that kept you going.
absolutely.
The feminine intuition that told you this needs to come through a woman's perspective. And then the masculine that kept taking the rejection and kept going and going and going.
Yes,
Because nothing actually changes for women until we have the voice and leadership of women. It
exactly.
cannot keep learning from the men. I spoke last year on the Tony Robbins stage, and I decided after that event, I got many, many invitations, and I decided I will only be speaking on my stage now. That's why I started this event, right? That happens in 2 weeks because I'm building the matriarchal stage. And my plan is going forward is for years coming, I'll be able to invite women from around the world to be on that stage with me because
Yes.
I'm no longer taking invitations to the male stage. I'm tired of always learning from the men. I
Amen.
respect them, but it is time for my daughter and for your
Yes.
daughter that we build stages for women.
Amen. And this, it's not that we reject the men. It's time for the men to make space for the need of the feminine energy in this world, because they also should want that. They should see that it was out of balance. And to do that, they have to step aside a little bit and say, you know what? It's your time now. We trust your intuition like your husband does. I trust your intuition. We're not putting them aside. We're not rejecting them. We're creating a new space that is needed. And
Claiming something for yourself does not equal rejection of someone else.
yes, yes, let's
That we
make
can
that
do
very clear.
both.
Yes, let's make it. And I totally am in that same phase and in that same, I don't need men to lift me. I need women to lift each other. That's sisterhood. So it's not a coincidence that we're having this conversation. I feel it already.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Okay, let's go to that new we call it stress of choice. So I give you two choices, and you can just decide, and then you cannot not decide. That's what I actually, that's what it is. Okay. Happy or healthy?
Healthy.
Okay. Manifesting or magnetism?
Magnetism.
I thought so. Doing or being?
Being.
Awareness or ego?
Awareness.
Naive or open-minded?
Open-minded.
Okay. Believing or seeing?
Believing.
Therapy or self-reliance?
Self-reliance.
Okay. Pure nature or natural?
Oh boy, those seem very much the same to me. I'll say pure nature.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. Regular or alternative?
Alternative.
Meditation or hypnosis?
Meditation.
Follow your dreams or success is a choice?
Success is a choice.
Awake or asleep?
Awake.
Life chooses for you or you choose life?
You choose life.
Taking chances or wait for it to happen?
Taking chances.
Left or right?
Right.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And was it hard or was it
No,
easy?
I didn't even think. I just felt. I
You
just
just
went with
felt.
it.
Okay, what was the association with right? Left or right?
Maybe it's because I'm right-handed. I just and my that's the stronger side of my body when I'm trying to like balance on one foot or I'm starting to run or I always lead with my right.
Okay. In the energetic medicine, energy medicine, right, is all about if you have problems on your right side of the body, we say it has to do with the masculine energy. It has to do with too much masculine energy or too little. That it's all about the future. It's all about the father wound, or, well, you just told me about your father wound. So that could be a connection as well. And yeah, so maybe
I'm going
that's.
to hear it as the future since I'm 2 weeks away from this
I
massive
think
event.
so. You're already stepping into that
Yes,
event,
yes.
beautiful event you just promoted on your post also in 2 weeks. So maybe I don't know if this podcast will be in time, but they will check you anyway. You check you out anyway and see what you all have to offer for the world because it's beautiful. Another thing is taking chances or wait for it to happen. You said taking chances. Okay, could you explain that?
Yeah, I am not someone who, if I have a feeling or a desire, I'm going to act on it. I'm not going to wait. I think the world passes you by if you're just in waiting energy. I am like, oh, I wouldn't even be in this conversation with you if I just waited.
Yes. So
The
you
opportunity showed
chance.
itself. I took the chance. I had no idea how it was going to make it happen, no idea where it was going to lead. It's beyond my wildest dreams. I could have never imagined my message would reach 200 million women globally in 2.5 years. So I took the chance. I didn't wait.
No, good. I love that. Um, Therapy or self-reliance? You mentioned self-reliance.
Yes, because many years of therapy didn't help me heal my motherhood or fatherhood wound. When I relied on myself to do that, talk therapy wasn't going to ever get me there. It was the internal work to rely on providing myself the things they never could,
Yes.
is what
Do,
healed me.
do the inner work and then you start healing. Yes, I totally agree. All right. Another category is Dr. Phil. My name is Vilna, so Dr. Phil is it's like a character. It's not not because I'm a doctor, but because it sounds funny. You have that Dr. Phil show, of course. I always say everybody needs healing, and they're all layers. We are always growing and learning and healing. If there is something in your cell memory, a fragrance that right now you could benefit from, if that would be reset, if that would be healed, what would you like to reset in this time in your life? And what would be the results?
Gosh, that's a tricky one because I love who I am. And I feel like if I reset anything from my childhood, maybe I would not even be doing this right now. I think it's come from such hunger and deprivation of it. That's why I'm serving. So I'm not feeling into what would I reset. I trust that it's all happened the way it was meant for me so that I could be here now doing. I believe my soul came just the way it meant to come through the exact experiences so that I could use my voice this way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Are there still some triggers that you experience in the now that if they wouldn't trigger you anymore, it would be more in the flow still? Are there still some triggers you experience or some
I
uncertainties?
I think the greatest trigger would just be societally, the way things are set up. I think that I would probably move even more freely than I do if I didn't have to worry about so many trolls on my page, if I didn't have to worry about my literal physical safety because I've received a few death threats. I'm very triggered by the lack of safety, the louder my voice gets, and this is how we quiet women. I have some rage around that, but even still, I don't know if I would reset the way men could receive this message because that doesn't always feel very good.
So what is that? If that's a reflection of your inner world, that man cannot receive that message yet, what would that mean for you? Where would the reflection be coming from?
I think that, even receiving it more for myself, even surrendering even deeper into the message for myself would be probably the best place to do
So
that work.
yeah, because I have the same. I have the same. A lot of hate and a lot of people who have opinions that are not so nice. And I always say, um, because Jeanne d'Arc, for example, she was she was being burned. How do you say that? On the fire. On the fire. How do you say that in English? Do you know Jeanne d'Arc? Hmm?
Being burned at the stake, being burned.
Yes, burned at the stake. Yes, and indeed, I feel blessed that women these days are at least not being burned on the stake by expressing themselves, by letting them hear their inner world and sharing it with the world. Although there are still some collective awarenesses that try to put you back in that old pain and try to make you relive that old pain again. And I think that's also what you were talking about. It's that old collective rejection pain that we had to go through as women, that we were not being believed, that we could not speak out, that we could not do what we needed to do, that we had to follow that patriarchic power. And that is still some unsafe feeling that's deep, deep, deep inside of us. That what if we do that today? What can happen? Will they lock me up? I mean, we saw during the COVID pandemic that still a lot of systems could take away your freedom. And there's still a lot of parts in the world where that is still the case. So it's not totally safe yet to be totally free and express yourself, right? Do you
Look
understand?
at what's happening in Afghanistan. A couple of months ago, women now are not allowed to sing in public. They're not allowed to speak.
Yeah.
The full face covering. So there are so many places where the world is
Still, yeah.
sending that message of like, don't get too free, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So there is still that, although we know it and we still do it and we still go for it, sometimes it also makes you go back into that's how I see it. Go back into that old pain.
I call it the witch wound, right?
Yes,
Like
the
it's
witch wound, thank you. Yes. And I think that it's good for us to talk about it, to also relive that and heal that. So we can be even more in our own power to, because if I look at, for example, Mother Teresa, or all the people who stood up out of the status quo that wasn't serving mankind, they had to endure, they had to suffer in a way also because of the goodness they spread. Now, I believe that the goodness we spread, we don't have to suffer for that. But I do think there's still layers in us that sometimes are being touched or triggered. And we just have to go through that feeling and then be aware that that's not reality anymore, as long as we don't make that reality anymore.
That's right.
So yeah, and we're strong together. We can help each other with that, I believe. So that's that sisterhood. Grab each
Absolutely.
other's hands and say, you're safe, we're fine, let's go.
It really happens the more I use my voice, right? I get angry about something that some kind of safety threat that comes,
Yes.
and I don't back down. As a matter of fact, I double down on
Yes.
my message. Um, and there's a healing in that that says, I will not go away. You will not silence me.
No. And one post I'm almost sure it was you, was so good in that aspect, because you said if a man only one chance, you give him only one chance. I believe that, yeah, that was your post, wasn't
I
it?
was talking about dating. You know, a lot of women, that went viral forever. It still does. Right. Women have a hard time with that one, but I'm talking about when you're newly dating, and I'm not talking about a disagreement. I'm saying out and out disrespect, disrespects you.
Yeah.
That's it. You
Yes.
know, if he wants to go do his healing and connect with you a couple years later and on a new path, wonderful. But every time you let that slide, because based on a childhood, it's just going on their traumatized childhood, it's going to come back over and over again because they'll see that you take it.
Yes. So if somebody is disrespectful to you, even only one time,
I'm talking about when you're dating, of course.
amazing.
I don't think you should tolerate disrespect ever. I don't. But you know, long-term marriages, is somebody going to snap at somebody? Yes, I've been disrespectful to my husband. I've raised my voice, or I've been like, "What were you thinking?" Right? But I'm talking about women have come to me with some pretty unbelievable things, like um, I caught him, online talking to other women, um, escort services, or I asked him to stop doing cocaine and he kept doing it, or he called me a name in public, or he left me at the restaurant without a ride home. That I'm talking about those types of things, right? You can only on a reel, there's only so much that was clipped from something. So but I would never tolerate it. I
If
would
from the
never.
beginning on there's no respect, stop it. That's what you say.
That's
Because
my
then there's no willingness to really connect in also meeting each other's traumas and solving them by recognize each other, by respecting each other, instead of putting the ego in front of them that and feel threatened or disrespect other people. So if that's not there yet, that willingness of listening and seeing somebody's pain and trying to understand that, and if they don't do that to you, you don't even start. Don't even start. Find somebody who is willing to go on that journey of healing with you, because we all need to heal in our relationships. Everybody. I don't know anybody who starts off in a relationship who doesn't need healing.
Right. And they don't even need to be like, yes, sign me up. I want to do this healing journey with you. But
Yeah.
at least there's an energy of contemplation or curiosity. But when it's blatant disrespect, to
Yes.
me, that's a huge red
Stop it.
flag.
That's a red flag. Somebody once told me not long ago, "Oh, you're such a princess because I demand respect from my husband." And I I always say when I feel that I deserve a man who opens the door for me, that I resonate that if it rains, he gets an umbrella for me. It's not because I cannot get the umbrella. I can do that. It's because I want him to show me that, yes, that I am as important as I feel that I am. And
And what do we even need men for? If I could do everything for myself,
yes,
why are we even doing this relationship?
exactly. So if people tell me, "Oh, but you're the princess," because he's willing to do that for me. He does that if he I don't need it all the time, but he's willing to do that. And I said, if that triggers you, then probably you want to be the princess in yourself as well, but you cannot have that yet. So that might makes you jealous, or you wish you had that as well. Because how would you feel if you could have that in your relationship? And they say, "Yes, I would love that." Well, then stop blaming
Triggers
me.
are always, yes, triggers are always a reflection of what we so desire.
Yes. So be that princess.
Yes,
Yes.
and I'm in favor of, like, I don't want to be a princess. We outgrow that. I mean, I'm
Yes,
the
I know what you mean, but the metaphor, huh? Be
right,
that.
right. You're the queen, right?
Yes,
He
the
would
queen.
always
That's what I meant. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
she called it a princess, but the metaphor is act like a queen and you will be treated like a queen.
Yes, but even women, notice how even grown women use the word princess. We could dissect that, and that's a
Good
episode for a
point.
whole nother day,
Yes,
right? Princess is that young, feeble, meek, and
yes,
mild. That's a very different energy
yes.
than a woman who is the queen being, and the man wants to protect like he wants to put the umbrella over the queen's head. He wants to open the door. So even when grown women run around using the word princess, you can already tell about their internal
In the
landscape and
world
how they see themselves in the
and their
world.
needs of yeah, exactly.
That's why a woman like that probably won't get a man who can do those things for her, because she's too in her princess energy.
Oh,
She's not
wow.
in her queen energy, which
Yeah.
is the whole concept I teach. I do an entire mastermind called Crowned. So
Oh,
it's basically
really?
growing out of princess energy
Into
into
the queen.
if you want to attract a king, if you want to attract a lot of money, if you want to create big business, you have to be in your queen energy to do that.
Yes, let's go for the queen energy. I love that. Finally, what is the greatest for just the viewers and the listeners at home? What is the greatest lesson you've learned or daily practice you would recommend about your body, mind, and soul and healing on your healing journey that you would like to finish off this podcast with?
Yes, the greatest thing I've ever done for myself started a few years ago is when I wake up in the morning, instead of turning my phone on, instead of connecting with anybody else, I go straight to the mirror before I even brush my teeth. And I just stand there and I hold reverence and honor for anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes, depending on what it is I'm needing that day. Because it's from that place that I source. I see the miracle. It's where I decide the relationship I'm going to move in the energy I'm going to be in that day. I don't let the world dictate how I'm going to feel about myself. So I don't consume external messaging that is toxic. I don't watch reality TV. I don't get into like celebrity culture. I don't get into all that industry. So I begin in the mirror as the most holy practice with myself. I really see and commune with myself every morning. That sets me up for an unbelievable vision for the rest of the day.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. And I would recommend that to everybody. And then you attract an environment which is not toxic, but is lifting each other up. And that's what we need in this world. So thank you so much, Amanda, for doing all that beautiful work all over the world, which I think is amazing. And I admire you for that. And you're an inspiration. So thank you so much for taking the time to inspire also the people in the Netherlands and Belgium.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such an honor. And thank you for your beautiful body of work for the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.